This is Regan Hagar, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Antid, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending, and tonight's guest is
Regan Hagar from Malfunkshun, Brad, Satchel, Fires, and his new band, The Deception.
And don't forget, from the north, promoting The Deception's newest album, We the People. And that was a bucket list interview for you, was it not?
Oh, my gosh, yes. I've been following Brad and Satchel since about 93, 94.
Let's get right to it, man.
All right.
Good night. Regan, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Antid.
Regan, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Well,
nice to meet you guys.
We are so super excited to have you on. I think I've tried to send you invites probably for the last 4 years, and you finally responded. We're like, we're going to get them. Finally, we're so excited to have you tonight.
We were working our way around the Regan family tree of bands.
Yeah, I shy away from these in general, but I do them occasionally.
Yeah, well, this is so super exciting. So, hey, let's get right into this. The Deception released the band's latest album, We the People, this past November. Can you give our listeners an insight to the creative songwriting and recording of this new album?
Yeah, it's a band that really is like Alex Shemway. He's the drummer from Green River, and he writes 90% of the riffs in The Deception. And we all decided to do this because Trump had been elected the first time. And we just wanted to do some punk music again because we had done it when we were kids. Generally, all of The Deception recordings are kind of demos in a sense. We tend to just get ideas and go in and capture them in small spurts and, a day at a time. And Gossard got a hold of some of it. I've been working with Loose Groove, but it's more of a Gossard, Alex Shemway thing that made this album come to life, and I'm thankful for it. But Alex had slipped Stone a bunch of music, and he kept enjoying it. So next thing you know, we're putting this full length out. We had done 3 7-inches prior to this, so it's a lot of music on one album, 22 songs or something.
Yeah, exciting.
Nice. Yeah, I'm new to the band, but is it? Do you guys do any live shows or anything like that with this lineup?
Yeah, a ton. So that's what it was really all about, was just playing around town here, and wasn't really planning on doing recordings or anything. Initially, it was literally just fun, kind of a throwback to our teenage years and trying to follow that formula. You know, we were very much 80s West Coast punk sounding, and with the kind of a rule that songs should be about a minute. They spill a little over or under, but keeping songs really short. And we played a ton of gigs around town, and we got, like 3 a month probably. And then COVID hit, and that wiped everything out for a while. And now we're kind of doing shows again, but we're a lot more reserved than we used to be.
Oh, very good. You know, recently The Deception played a show along with Sweetwater and Moon Fever. What can you tell our listeners about the Deception live? Do you feel like the band is more comfortable in the live setting, or some bands prefer being in the studio experience? I guess where's the band's mindset when it comes to playing music?
We're a live band. We're not a studio band, and that's why our recordings are kind of demo-ish. We haven't put a lot of attention or time into any of the recordings. Kind of to keep things true to what our formula was initially, which is, back when Green River and Malfunkshun used to share rehearsal spaces for those years, recording was not really something that we did a lot. It was all about playing shows. So we're a live band.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I know Dave plays on bass, is also in the band Fires with you, but I'm not familiar with. Can you talk a little bit about Samuel Bly, the vocalist?
Yeah, Sam Bly is a guy from our neighborhood where we live, and he used to travel with Satchel, so he goes way back with me, and Sam and I had been in a band prior to The Deception called Buffaloes, and we were just kind of doing live gigs around Seattle. It was kind of like a slightly art rock band, and that included Cody Davis, guitar player that I've been in 3 or 4 bands with, Dark State Lines, The Deception, Buffaloes. And when The Deception started, it was like an Alex, Dave and I were at a Boris show, and the concept was kind of born. And then we immediately just brought the Buffaloes guys. So Sam and Cody came. It all fell together really quick because we're all living in the same neighborhood, and we've shared practice rooms again, for a lot of time together through the years, different bands. And, that's where Fires comes into. That's Dave's band. So Dave writes the music in Fires primarily. The Deception is kind of like an Alex driven band. Even though we're all in multiple bands, it's all kind of the same crew.
Yeah.
Gotcha. As We the People was released this past November, what does the band have going here in 2025? New music? What are you looking at?
Yeah. I think new music. I think that putting this record out in the fashion that it came out through Loose Groove kind of jazzed the guys in the band that weren't expecting anything like that, where all of a sudden we're on Spotify and weird platforms that before were not available. I guess they were, but we just didn't deal with that stuff at all again. Kind of just a lazy neighborhood band. And so I think they're excited, and we've talked about now, well, maybe we should go down the coast or something. That would be fun to take some time off from our jobs and do some shows outside of Seattle. Has been talked about. So, maybe that's 2025's plan for The Deception.
Exciting.
Yeah. I know when when I ordered the Fires LP, I think Dave had responded back in there and mentioned that you guys might have a second album with Fires. Is there anything in the works with that band?
Yeah, Fires has got another album completed. And the thing is that Shawn Smith sings on like half of it, and Ty Willman sings on half. Neither are in the group anymore. Now Dave would like to take a stab at singing just to keep things easy. As far as, again, our neighborhood kind of thing, it's like we're not so full-time a band that we would necessarily like go out seeking a singer. So Dave's going to give a shot at it. And I think we want to see how that plays out before we release that next record, which I thought would have been out actually, a couple of years ago, because a lot of the recordings are pretty old at this point. But maybe Dave will re-sing it, and then we'll put it out. It'll have a little bit more cohesion to the whole thing and where the band is going, moving forward.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. So, generalized question here. You talked a little bit about COVID, but we're in post-COVID for a while now. But how do you feel as though the live experiences now, with all the mitigations, are now in the rearview mirror? Do you feel like the music scene in Seattle is back to where it was before COVID?
I don't know if it was back to where it was. I suppose it's definitely back. I think that there's change has happened as far as, people maybe not wanting 5-band bills as much anymore. Things starting a little earlier, ending a little earlier has been pretty well embraced. I just, I don't know about all the bands, but I know for the bands that I play in, we're certainly not at the speed we were at pre-COVID. The Deception, again, used to just play obnoxiously, really. Just like repeating a lot of the same clubs, just doing, just banging at it. And that just I don't know if there's any passion for that anymore post-COVID. Maybe that's why we need to leave town.
Very good.
I want to take it back ways a little bit. My first introduction to Regan Hagar is Brad, 1993 Shame album, and then Satchel's EDC. I've been hooked on both bands and all of the family tree of bands that have anything to do with Shawn Smith or Regan Hagar since then. But can you talk a little bit about the formation of Brad? We just had Jeremy Toback on recently, and he remembered the coffee shop that I think you might have worked at with maybe your mom. He had a story about that.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about those early days?
Yeah, well, I did. I noticed Jeremy's interviews. He's done a few things recently, and of course, we don't agree on all things. Yeah. But those days were, again, kind of back when it was pre-social media and all that, so nobody had cell phones, and it was such a social thing as far as the music scene in town. Like, it's just kind of what you did when you were bored. Is there was always something going on, music related. So we were all incestuous in the way that we still are, really, where Green River and Malfunkshun shared band rooms for years, and therefore Jeff and Stone and Andy and I played together a lot, and we would do other things. And, that's really where Love Bone was born. And which I was booted out of because Greg Gilmore was the best drummer in town, and they were making a run for it. And I just was like, wow, that's amazing. Greg will do it. That's an old story though. So, my mom had a coffee business with coffee carts, and this is, it's not pre-Starbucks, but it just was not what it is now. Yeah. And so I worked at the carts as a musician. It was a kind of a perfect gig that was flexible for me, and it let me do what I needed to do to be in bands. And we grew that into an actual brick and mortar coffee shop on Capitol Hill, which is like a really densely populated hill that overlooks the downtown area. It's like where the youth lives, essentially. So that was cool. And, musicians that I played with got gigs there too. We could, my mom hired a lot of different, John Hogue, and trying to think of different band members of mine that worked there. I'm sure Mike Berg worked there, I think. I don't know, but that's, the coffee shop thing was just kind of my mom's thing, and she was supportive of the scene, of all of us young adults at that point. I won't say kids, but we're all 20 or whatever, early 20s, and so we could float in and out of that gig and still, do all the musical necessities. So that sometimes conflicts with gigs.
Absolutely. Well, we've had many of your constituents on in the past, Bruce Fairweather and Jeremy Toback, and we can go on and on about some of the past people that you've worked with, but the experience of being a band member with Shawn Smith, and everybody's talked so candidly about the brilliance of Shawn Smith, of the songwriter and a vocalist and a musician, et cetera, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit more about your thoughts on Shawn and what we feel like was his brilliance as an artist?
Well, his brilliance was just so profound and so immediate to me. So, and I've done more. I mean, almost my entire musical career has been spent paired with him, and I'm very fortunate for that. We've made a lot of records together in various bands, and that's I feel very fortunate. But where it started was I was working at Tower Records, and he just moved to Seattle from Bakersfield. He got a job at Tower. He was on shift, played a Prince record. I'm a huge Prince fan. I introduced myself. We used to, this is, if you remember record stores, whoever was running the shift or, the counter doing the ring outs got to play the music. And so you pull records, open them up, play them during your shift, and then when you count out your till in the basement, you reseal the records that you used and put them back. That was what we did.
Yep.
And so we were down there resealing records together, and Malfunkshun had just done its recording that became the one and only really band recording, which became Return to Olympus. And, a Pyrrhic Victory was cut out of that recording, but that's another story. Because Deep Six was the first time that band ever recorded. But anyways, I digress. So I was playing him some Malfunkshun. I'm like, yeah, this is my band. And he was into it. And the next day, he brought in his music, and he's like, here's mine. And it was like a 4-track. And he did everything on it. It was like drum machine and keyboards and guitars and vocals and shit. And it blew my mind. And I immediately was like, oh my God, we're starting a band together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I latched on to him immediately, and this is when it was all right. So Malfunkshun is still kind of functioning. Love Bone's going. I've already, I've done a gig with him. I'm kicked out. I'm not kicked out. Greg comes back from India or whatever and takes over. And so I was kicked out. I got the call from Gossard. He's like, hey, man, Greg's going to be in the band now. I was like, wow. So it was fine for me to grab. I was just like, Shawn and I will do this. We spent months trying to put it together. And, we went through different people that we knew. I was trying to build this band around Shawn. With everyone I knew, and it kind of didn't happen because somebody got that same tape to Jonathan Poneman, and he was immediately same kind of thing I was going through, which was like, holy shit, who's this guy? And he connected them with Fisk, and they started the Pigeonhead Project, which made Shawn leave this band, Molasses, it was called, that we were trying to start. He had come up with that name, and that band actually continued for years and was a real band. But Shawn exited it as soon as it was, just starting, and did Pigeonhead, and I did Molasses for a couple of years or whatever. And I worked at this printing press because I used to like to get free band stuff, so I would get like side posters and stuff. I could do some printing for free. So one of my coworkers asked me to come set up his drum set at some space he had. So I went there with him after work. And at his space was John Hogue and Corey Kane. And they were just two guys I didn't know. And I helped this guy set up his drum set. And in doing so, I ended up just jamming randomly with these two strangers. And I was like, fuck, these guys are great. And I called Shawn immediately and said, you know, he's in the middle of Pigeon Head. And he comes down and four of us jam. And then we all decided we're going to start a band. And that was Satchel. It was called Bliss for a year or so, or less maybe. But there was another band in Canada called Bliss. And they came to one of our gigs and said, we're called Bliss. You need to change your name. And we said, okay. And we did. And we switched it to Satchel. And trying to think of how long Gossard was into what we were doing. So he was hanging around a lot, our jam space. Because I think at that point, Green River was over and Love Bone was official and they left. We weren't sharing a space all of a sudden. I think Love Bone's... Anyways, it's hard for me with the timeline sometimes. But Smith, he comes back. We start Satchel. I don't know what year that is exactly. But from that, Brad is born because Gossard gets kind of like new money from Pearl Jam all of a sudden, hitting the big time and just flashing, recording week on Shawn and I randomly, really randomly. And that's how he brought in Jeremy because his roommate pitched Jeremy to Gossard. And that all, obviously worked out. He was a good bass player. So, but that was, Satchel was existing. Stone gets to meet Shawn, blah, blah, blah. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Don't worry.
I've been a fan for a while, so this is all cool to me.
Yeah.
So I just had a question about live music. I was fortunate enough to see Brad live back in like '97 on the Interiors tour. But did either band, Brad or Satchel, have any like live recordings laying around that could possibly be released someday?
I think so. And we've talked about that chore. There's a ton of recordings. And there's some that are kind of semi-pro, and then there's some, field recordings from fans that are actually pretty high caliber.
Oh, cool.
And then there's some rougher ones. And people, especially when Shawn passed away, were very generous about like writing the band and saying, I have this, I have that. It was almost overwhelming. It was really wonderful because, in particular, Shawn worked with a lot of people. He had a lot of things going on, so that all poured into what is his estate with Lucy Suzuki, who looks after everything. And it's an overwhelm. I totally get it. There's just like so much material at different stages. It's like different qualities. But I think that if we could hunker down and dig into it, there would certainly be a live Brad record. Possibly a Satchel as well. And, I don't know. It's overwhelming to actually kind of think about doing that, but I think that could happen.
Pardon my ignorance, but were you part of the All Hail the Crown project with Kevin Wood?
I wasn't in. I did From the North and then exited because Kevin and he wanted to call it Malfunkshun, and I didn't. I'm like, this has to be From the North. He ended up switching it, and then, I exited. He changed it to Malfunkshun against my, wishes. He's got every right to, even though I played on it. And then, so he did All Hail the Crown, which I loved. And I was just like immediately going, fuck, I wish I had played on this record. But, I'm trying to think of his name. The drummer, I really enjoyed him, and he was hanging around. Shawn introduced me to him, and he was just a lovely, lovely guy from Bainbridge, and we really hit it off. So I love All Hail the Crown, but I didn't play on that record. I think the Shawn's voice, that experience and him finding that particular sound and how the process in which he was doubling himself in that particular record, more than it started a little bit with From the North, but All Hail the Crown really got him. Because at first you'd think, oh, it's the producer, mixer, or whatever. It's like, well, Shawn came up with a newer process of doubling himself, and it was lower register and just wicked, and it definitely carried over into Brad's stuff that we were doing that ended up being on our final record. There's some of that voice, which I was so thankful for, and he puts them on the Fires tracks that he's on as well. And the Fires stuff, I've talked to Dave, it's like I could really see taking everything that Shawn sang, like fully sang, and just doing it as an EP or something separate, like just pull it aside from Fires. Maybe it could be called Fires, but Ty Willman had quit the band. Well, he's quit the band a couple times, and one of the times Ty had got overwhelmed and walked away, which I understand. And, he has fatigue issues or whatever, so he ebbs and flows from wanting to work or be in a band, which I totally understand. So Shawn at one point stepped in and did a bunch of recording stuff and basically sang on everything we had going. And I love it. It's amazing. But, he's gone, and now Ty's gone again. And it's just like, I hesitate to call anything Fires like that. I might as well call it a Shawn project with Fires. But anyways, I digress.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of material with Shawn on it, and it's just like figuring out how to get it out. And I know there's a little bit of a rush feel for Lucy because there's been a few years already just her sorting through everything. We finally got, Shield out. Southern Lords talking about All Hail the Crown with Kevin. I hope he does it. If I were involved, I would be like pushing that forward. I'm not on the record, so I'm not in that discussion, but I know that Greg Anderson wants to do that. He did the Malfunkshun reissue, which is stellar, because he just opened it up to us putting our demo stuff on there too. Songs that we only had on Blaster. We literally recorded with a tape deck. He let us put that shit out, and I just think it sounds great. I have no problem with it being a bad source per se. Well,
I know after he passed, they took all his stuff down off of Bandcamp, but then slowly it's been kind of coming back, one track at a time.
I've been encouraging that and trying to, I had said to Lucy, you have to just be bold, because turning all of that stuff off, I think was maybe rash. It's certainly not my place to say when it should be on or off, but I was surprised that it got turned off, and I heard from other people that they were disappointed that they didn't have access to it anymore, and I offered my design services to her gratis if she would agree to do a song every week, which seemed like an overwhelm. And now that we're more than halfway through, I think she's thrilled, and it's been really fun. She selects the songs, puts them in a folder for me. I listen to them and generate the artwork out of my little folder that has all of my Shawn shit. And it's been fun. I think that, again, there's a long road ahead of us if we want to get all the Shawn shit out there. But I think she could certainly do more than a year. She could do more than 2 years. So I just like that there's a new song once a week from Shawn to some people, even if they've heard it before. Yes. Maybe taking it away has made their appetite increase. I don't know.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I know it has mine, so I'm excited. Let's talk about off of that. Let's talk a little about your freelance graphic design. You do that. When you're not doing the bands and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your? I know you got started with being in the bands and doing T-shirts and posters and stuff, but talk a little bit more about the day job part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I love it. I did the band called The Farts, their first 7-inch when I was like probably 14 or something, and cut and paste made a 7-inch cover for my friend's band, and I was just like, I've been hooked ever since. And punk opened up a lot of that poster making and stuff. So I got to do a lot of that. Andy and I would draw a lot of, pictures of ourselves. I just have always cared about the visual side of it. To me, it's part of each and every project. It's like, coming up with titles for songs, titles for bands, titles for albums, a visual of any kind for each and every song or a collection of songs. All of those are opportunities I look forward to doing if I'm not trying to control it. See, my thing is always trying to balance and make sure that the band members don't think I'm taking it. I love doing it. I want to do all of it. Like my initial reaction is I have an idea. So it's just always been there. And I guess it was like when Loose Groove shut down the first time, when we had Loose Groove, let me go back. When we started Loose Groove in the 90s, I didn't have a computer. I would have to send stuff to New York to their art department, and they would do stuff like the first Shame record. It's like even the Loose Groove in the back tray of the first CD, that was a note to them. They were supposed to generate something out of that, not put it in there. So same with all the titles and stuff that ended up in my handwriting. That wasn't initially the plan. It was me sending a box with photographs and shit in it to these art department people with sort of some instruction. And it never came the way I wanted. So I finally went from cut and paste to getting my first computer at Loose Groove and just went hog wild ever since. And when we shut Loose Groove down after Queens left, which is another story, it was my tool. So I went down to Seattle to a design firm place and put in a portfolio. I'd never been to school for it, but I got hired, and I had a cubicle with, there's like 40 designers in Photoshop all in this, building. And it just kicked my ass. Like I learned so much so fast being around all these professionals that it kind of just upped my game. And I've been able to maintain it being how I earn my money to pay, essentially rent and food and everything comes not from music, but from design. And design spilled into video, and I try and make videos. To me, it's the same exact theory. Everything's the same, just coming up with an idea for music. So, and they're all the same tools. They're all Adobe. I work in Adobe products. So they had a, Premiere video thing. It was just sitting there once they forced me into the package instead of just buying my Photoshop and Illustrator, which is what I lived in for years. When it went to subscription, all of a sudden I had access to doing videos and everything else that's in there. But I love it.
Very good.
It's an expression. I think that, I'm not trying to be a master at it. I'm trying to really enjoy it. Again, I'm kind of ADD where I'm designing for 3 or 4 hours, and then I'm going to go play drums for a couple hours, and then, mix and match all that stuff. So master of none, but I love it. I really do. It's amazing to me that I can do something that I love, that I can be rewarded for, as far as my survival tickets that I need. I wish there wasn't money, but I need it for surviving, and graphics and layout has been basically what's carried me through the hurdles of the music stuff, which is feast and famine,
Well, we got one last question for you, and then we'll leave you alone for the evening. And this might be a complex question for you, so hold tight here. Body of work,
okay.
Body of work of all your things that you've had your hands in as far as studio releases go. Do you have a favorite album that you've been a part of? And then on the flip side, do you have an album you said to yourself, damn, I wish I could go back in and redo the whole darn thing?
I wish I could go back and redo the whole darn thing to everything. Always. It's kind of part of the process. Yeah. And it's kind of bittersweet because it I try and shake it. My favorite record recording and etc. process is going to be EDC.
Yeah.
I think Satchel is my band of bands. That's Shawn and I's friendship and freedom is expressed together in that band like no other band. Things like From the North are neat. They're like kind of all-star bands where I've got Corey Keane on bass, Kevin Wood on guitar, Shawn on vocals. This is an incredible band, but the experience is going to definitely be Satchel, EDC. It was naive. We did it just for ourselves. It was, completely free expression.
Fair enough. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Probably. I guess Loose Groove. Go Loose Groove. That's it.
All right, very good. Well, this is how things are going to work out once Jeff gets a hold of this thing, and he will make everybody sound like $1 million, and then I'll send you the link. Does that sound all right?
That sounds perfect.
Hey, we appreciate your time.
Yeah.
You've been fantastic. Thank you so much, Regan. It was an absolute honor having you on tonight.
All right. Thanks for your tenacity, you guys. I'm sorry I've been difficult to get to. And,
well, it's worth the wait.
I'm sure that I'm sure my answers are wandering too, but thanks for having me.
You were fantastic.
Okay.
Take care of yourself.
Be well.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
No! Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out.